It was 2 a.m. when Olivia Palmer felt the gravel press against her knees. The cold seeped through her jeans, but she remained still, her hands cuffed behind her back. Officer Derek Watkins loomed over her, voice sharp, eyes narrowed. She knew that one wrong word could unravel everything she had worked for over 12 years. Yet she did not flinch. Every detail of the encounter was being etched into memory. The angle of his flashlight, the pressure of his boot, the rasp of his voice. She memorized the badge number, the time, and every humiliating word he spoke. 2 days earlier, Olivia had entered the FBI Richmond field office like any other morning. The badge at her hip was polished, her blazer crisp. She greeted the security desk by name, grabbed her usual coffee, and headed to her cluttered office where her partner, Special Agent Nathan Cross, was already immersed in files. A manila folder slid across the desk, held 3 new complaints. Black drivers pulled over after midnight in Caldwell County, each claiming possession charges were planted. Olivia's stomach tightened as she examined the patterns, recognizing the same corrupted body cam footage across all cases. It wasn't coincidence, it was systemic. Caldwell County was small, rural, mostly white, with a sparse law enforcement presence and only one late-night gas station. Black residents were a minority, yet they accounted for the majority of nighttime stops. Derek Watkins' name appeared repeatedly. Olivia's personal connection to the law ran deep. Her father had been a city detective, his early death leaving her with a determination to protect the vulnerable. Every Sunday she called her mother, Denise Palmer, who always warned, "Not everybody sees the badge first." Olivia would laugh, "Mama, I am the badge." But that night, in her car, she was just a black woman on a dark road. She drove a clean, dark blue Chevrolet Malibu for solo reconnaissance, no badge visible, credentials tucked safely in her glove box. The lavender air freshener swayed in the rearview mirror. She texted Nathan. Heading south, solo run, back by dawn, his reply, "Stay frosty." By 1 a.m, she had covered her designated route twice. Obeying every traffic law, she maintained her cool as red and blue lights flashed behind her. She pulled onto the gravel shoulder, hands at 10 and 2, rehearsing every move her father had drilled into her. Watkins approached without greeting, scanning her car with a flashlight before acknowledging her presence. He cited a taillight flicker and an air freshener obstruction, pretexts she recognized immediately. She complied with his commands, keeping calm. 11 minutes passed before he returned, posture hardened, ordering her out. She stepped onto the pine-scented shoulder, no weapon, no badge visible. Officer Tanya Beckett arrived quietly behind him, nervous and unsure, instructed to watch Olivia. Watkins searched the car aggressively but found nothing. Her credential wallet lay untouched in the glove box, a symbol of the authority he ignored. Then the cuffs clicked, cold metal against her wrists, his hand forcing her head down. Gravel scraped her skin as the world tilted. Beckett watched silently, complicit through inaction. Olivia remained silent, choosing the mission over her immediate safety, every second preserving the investigation. She was charged with resisting and obstruction, though she had complied entirely. In the station, the fluorescent lights hummed, cold and impersonal. She declined to make a call, keeping her cover intact, reconstructing the night in her mind, memorizing every detail for later evidence. Nathan, monitoring from Richmond, noticed her vehicle stationary for over 70 minutes. He called for an emergency welfare check, triggering a federal response. Special Agent Kathleen Doyle intervened, ordering no further processing until FBI agents arrived. Olivia remained seated in the holding cell, silently holding the weight of her mission. By dawn, federal agents retrieved her, documenting the untouched credential wallet, a 4-ounce token of authority that would dismantle a culture of corruption. The system moved, slowly but decisively, and Olivia walked into the morning sun, the pine-scented air carrying both relief and resolve. In the quiet hours of dawn, Caldwell County's small-town streets were empty, save for the occasional early bird heading to work. Olivia Palmer walked with Nathan Cross toward her parked Malibu, the morning air crisp and tinged with pine. Her hands flexed slightly, loosening the stiffness left from the cuffs. Every movement reminded her of the night before, but she held her composure. The black leather credential wallet, now photographed and logged as evidence, rested in Nathan's hands. 4 ounces of authority, enough to unravel 12 years of corruption. At the Sheriff's Department, Captain Brenda Sullivan had begun the methodical review of Officer Watkins's actions. His dashcam had recorded a flawless sequence of fabricated pretexts, while Beckett's bodycam preserved the truth. Olivia's complete compliance. Watkins' own claims crumbled under the weight of objective evidence. The layers of bureaucracy, federal oversight, and internal review were converging with precision. Each piece of evidence piled higher, revealing not just one rogue officer, but a culture of unchecked power and racial bias. Olivia and Nathan returned to Richmond, the weight of what had just transpired settling between them. The FBI's Richmond field office had mobilized rapidly, sending agents to Caldwell County and preparing civil rights investigations. Olivia debriefed her supervisors with surgical precision, detailing every movement, every word, every breath of the ordeal. The information would protect other citizens, ensure accountability, and expose systemic abuse. Yet internally, she felt the strain. The night had left a mark, a subtle shift in the way she carried herself. Meanwhile, Watkins sat in his home, the news of federal involvement spreading quietly. His confidence was fraying. A lifetime of asserting authority based on assumptions and unchecked privileges was now being scrutinized with cold, unyielding evidence. The badge he had wielded as power was no longer a shield, but a target. Across town, Beckett wrestled with her conscience, replaying the moments she had stood silently by. The weight of inaction now collided with the clarity of her moral obligation. Back in Richmond, Olivia met with Sullivan and a team of analysts, reviewing patterns of racial bias in Caldwell County traffic stops. The data was stark: disproportionate targeting of black drivers, repeated fabrications, and repeated suppression of accountability through corrupted files. Olivia's heart tightened, recalling the 3 individuals in Nathan's office 2 days prior, their lives disrupted, their trust violated. Each statistic now carried faces, families, and stories demanding justice. The investigation expanded. 2 additional officers who had regularly partnered with Watkins were scrutinized. Reports, surveillance logs, and dashcam footage were gathered and cross-referenced. Every anomaly became a thread to pull, and the FBI was meticulous. Olivia, despite the personal cost of her confrontation the night before, continued her mission. Her resolve was unwavering, fueled by both professional duty and the memory of her father's legacy. Even as the sun climbed higher, Olivia reflected on the moral complexities she faced. Speaking out could have ended her mission prematurely. Remaining silent had preserved justice for many beyond herself. This delicate balance between personal risk and systemic accountability defined the work of an agent, and she carried it with quiet dignity. Each step forward was calculated, intentional, and grounded in the larger purpose of safeguarding the law and those it protected. By mid-morning, the wheels of federal inquiry were turning fully. Watkins's actions were catalogued, the evidentiary chain unbroken. Olivia had transformed from the individual who endured to the catalyst for institutional scrutiny. The morning light did not erase the night's ordeal, but it illuminated the path ahead. Justice, slow and deliberate, was beginning to take shape in Caldwell County, propelled by the courage of one woman who chose the mission over herself. By midday, the Caldwell County Sheriff's Department was a hive of subdued tension. Internal Affairs had begun the meticulous audit of every stop Watkins had conducted over the past 3 years. Each case told the same story: fabricated pretexts, missing or corrupted bodycam footage, and disproportionate targeting of Black and Latino drivers. Captain Sullivan and her team pored over files, cross-referencing times, locations, and witness statements. The pattern was undeniable, systematic, and damning. Olivia returned to her desk in Richmond, the hum of fluorescent lights above a quiet reminder of the contrast between controlled offices and the chaotic streets she monitored. She organized the documentation she had memorized the night she was detained. The angle of the flashlight, the weight of the cuffed hands, the precision with which Watkins' aggression unfolded. Every detail was crucial. Each recollection built a narrative that no single corrupt officer could suppress. Meanwhile, Derek Watkins began to realize the severity of the situation. Calls from his superiors were terse, the tone clipped, carrying a weight that his badge could no longer shield him from. The fabrications he had relied upon were now exposed, each record scrutinized under federal oversight. Fear and denial wrestled within him. His authority, once unquestioned, was now contingent on procedures and evidence beyond his control. Officer Beckett wrestled with her own decisions. She had followed instructions, maintained distance, and avoided conflict. But the memory of Olivia on the pavement haunted her. In interviews with Sullivan, she recounted the night's events, acknowledging both her fear and her inaction. The confession was painful but necessary, a small step toward rectifying systemic negligence. The civil rights investigation, launched by the FBI, expanded quickly, encompassing not only Watkins but other officers implicated in repeated patterns of misconduct. Dashcam footage, radio logs, and internal records were scrutinized for discrepancies. The analysis revealed a culture where senior officers leveraged authority to override protocol, with little consequence for repeated violations. In Richmond, Nathan Cross coordinated with Sullivan, analyzing GPS data, patrol patterns, and timelines. The integration of federal resources with internal reviews created a pressure on Caldwell County to comply, yielding previously unavailable data. The picture emerging was larger than one stop, one officer, or one night. It was a systemic failure masked by local deference to authority. Olivia's focus remained sharp despite the emotional toll. She meticulously debriefed every interaction, every subtle sign of intent, and every element of the surveillance. Her notes formed the backbone of the investigation, corroborating evidence and protecting the credibility of witnesses. In this careful assembly of facts, the story of abuse and resilience emerged clearly. As afternoon settled, the first actions began to take tangible form. Watkins faced formal review, charges and inquiries multiplied. Olivia, while quietly exhausted, observed the beginnings of accountability. She allowed herself a brief pause at her desk, glancing at a photo of her father, a reminder of legacy, resilience, and the importance of choosing integrity over expedience. The journey toward justice was only beginning, but for the first time it had direction, momentum, and purpose. The following morning, Olivia Palmer walked through the Richmond field office with a purpose sharpened by the events in Caldwell County. Each step echoed the resolve that had carried her through the dark roads and the concrete bench of the holding cell. Her badge chain rested over her blouse, a subtle yet constant reminder of the weight she bore. Not just as a federal agent, but as a protector of justice. Captain Sullivan convened a meeting with her team, reviewing the patterns uncovered from Watkins' past stops. Every detail mattered: timestamps, dashcam footage, radio dispatch logs, GPS tracking, and witness statements. The team mapped out each night, each vehicle, each interaction that displayed the systematic abuse of authority. The clarity of evidence left no room for misinterpretation. Watkins, now facing multiple inquiries, began to understand the scope of the consequences. Internal Affairs reports detailed fabricated reasons for stops, destroyed or corrupted footage, and consistent targeting of minorities. The facade of control he had relied on was collapsing under the scrutiny of federal and internal investigators. Anxiety crept into his demeanor, the certainty of his past authority replaced by the reality of accountability. Beckett's interviews continued, offering crucial insight into the night of Olivia's detention. She recounted her fear, her hesitation, and the awareness that Watkins' authority outweighed her own voice in that moment. The internal review framed her narrative not as villainy, but as a reflection of systemic pressure and human vulnerability, highlighting the necessity for reform and training in ethical conduct. In the field office, Nathan Cross coordinated the integration of all collected data. Olivia's meticulous notes, body cam footage, and digital records formed a comprehensive timeline. Each action by Watkins and his partners was cross-referenced, confirming patterns of misconduct and fabrications. The team worked tirelessly, ensuring that every layer of evidence was accounted for, building a case that was thorough, precise, and undeniable. By late afternoon, the first formal notifications were dispatched. Watkins received a notice of internal review, and the FBI initiated a civil rights investigation. The ripple effects of Olivia's encounter were now tangible. Other officers, previously unchecked, realized that their actions were being scrutinized. The culture of impunity in Caldwell County was beginning to fracture. Throughout the day, Olivia reflected on the personal cost of her mission. The physical pain from the previous night, the emotional weight of witnessing systemic abuse, and the moral complexities of her decisions weighed heavily. Yet, within this burden was a renewed sense of purpose. Every careful decision, every moment of restraint had preserved the integrity of the investigation and protected countless individuals from injustice. As the sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the office floor, Olivia allowed herself a brief moment to exhale. The process of accountability had begun, and though the journey ahead was arduous, there was a tangible sense of progress. One night, one traffic stop, and one unwavering commitment to justice had ignited a chain reaction. Caldwell County would never be the same, and Olivia's quiet strength had been at the center of that change. By the next morning, Caldwell County was tense but silent. The sheriff's office operated under an unspoken scrutiny, officers aware that federal eyes now followed each movement. Olivia Palmer returned to Richmond, debriefing with Nathan Cross and Captain Sullivan. Each revelation from Watkins' previous stops was logged, each pattern mapped meticulously. Every detail from the night she was detained, the gravel scraping against her skin, the weight of the cuffs, the force of his hand, was documented in precise chronological order. The evidence painted a chilling portrait of abuse. Black and Latino drivers disproportionately stopped at night, repeated fabrications justifying those stops, and body cam footage conveniently corrupted or missing. Olivia's courage on the roadside, choosing silence over confrontation, had preserved the integrity of the investigation, ensuring that the truth could emerge untainted. Watkins began receiving calls and visits from internal affairs, the language clipped and professional, leaving no room for his previous arrogance. The notice of inquiry detailed fabricated probable causes, unlawful detention, and deliberate obstruction of justice. Even the badge he had worn as a shield could not protect him from the methodical and relentless examination of his actions. Beckett faced her own reckoning. Interviews captured her inaction, not as malice but as fear and the pressure of hierarchy. Her testimony would later prove invaluable, detailing each moment she witnessed without intervening, revealing the systemic issues that allowed misconduct to persist unchecked. She would eventually cooperate fully, exposing the chain of abuse and demonstrating that institutional culture, not just individual choices, enabled these violations. In Richmond, Olivia coordinated evidence review and strategy, working through every report, timestamp, and video frame. Her meticulous attention ensured that federal, state, and internal investigations aligned, creating an airtight case against Watkins and his collaborators. The team traced every irregularity to its source, linking repeated misbehavior across multiple nights and officers, showing not isolated incidents, but a pattern of systemic abuse. The human consequences of the investigation weighed heavily. Olivia remembered the 3 drivers whose lives had been disrupted, their trust violated. Each data point carried faces and families, each statistic representing real suffering. Her role as both protector and investigator allowed her to honor those experiences, transforming frustration and fear into precise, methodical work that demanded accountability. As the afternoon sun settled over Richmond, the first formal internal memos and federal notices had been dispatched. Watkins and any involved officers were now facing the consequences of their actions. The culture of silence and impunity in Caldwell County was being dismantled piece by piece, and Olivia's mission had sparked a transformation that would extend beyond a single night, beyond a single officer, and reach into the very structures meant to safeguard justice. Olivia paused at her desk, the photograph of her father before her, a reminder of the legacy she carried. Every action, every decision was guided by that legacy and the weight of the responsibility she bore. Justice was slow, deliberate, and exacting, but progress had begun. And in that moment, Olivia Palmer allowed herself a quiet satisfaction. The first steps toward systemic accountability had been taken, and the path forward, though long, was now illuminated by truth and courage. In the days that followed, Caldwell County was a tension-filled backdrop for accountability. Officers moved through their routines with caution, conscious of the federal presence shadowing each action. Captain Brenda Sullivan oversaw a thorough review of Watkins' conduct and his partner's involvement, confirming a culture of procedural abuse and unchecked authority. Dashcam evidence, body cam footage, and internal reports were analyzed meticulously, each detail corroborating patterns of racial bias and misconduct. Olivia Palmer continued her work in Richmond, organizing the chronological flow of events, reconstructing the moments she had endured, and coordinating with Nathan Cross to ensure that every fact was verified. The courage she had shown while detained, remaining silent, compliant, and vigilant, allowed the investigation to unfold with integrity. Each detail she remembered became evidence, each memory a safeguard against potential obfuscation. Beckett's cooperation was critical. Her testimony described in vivid detail the lack of intervention during Olivia's detention, emphasizing the pressures that inhibit ethical action within a hierarchical law enforcement structure. Her candidness revealed systemic failings, not merely individual choices, and laid the groundwork for broader reform. Federal authorities began implementing civil rights investigations, focusing on disproportionate targeting and fabricated offenses. The scope expanded, encompassing officers who had collaborated with Watkins, revealing a network of misuse of authority that had persisted unchecked for years. Olivia's precise documentation ensured that federal, state, and internal investigations were unified, leaving no room for misinterpretation or misrepresentation. Throughout Richmond, Nathan coordinated logistical details, ensuring every record, video, and report aligned with federal procedures. Each finding reinforced the narrative: patterns of abuse, falsified claims, and suppression of accountability. Watkins' previous authority, grounded in intimidation and selective enforcement, was eroding under scrutiny and documentation. Olivia reflected on the human impact of the investigation. Beyond statistics and reports were the lives disrupted. Individuals wrongfully charged, families strained, trust in law enforcement eroded. Her mission extended beyond justice for herself. It was about safeguarding the rights of those without the protections afforded by a federal badge. As afternoon light filled the Richmond office, notifications were sent to Caldwell County leadership, and Watkins faced formal inquiries. Every action, every stop, and every fabricated claim was under examination. The process was methodical, deliberate, and exacting, demonstrating that no individual, regardless of rank, could operate beyond the law indefinitely. Olivia paused to glance at the photo of her father on her desk. His pride, discipline, and legacy guided her work. Justice was not instantaneous, but the wheels had begun to turn, and Caldwell County's law enforcement culture was being compelled to reckon with its actions. Through her resolve, meticulous preparation, and unwavering adherence to duty, Olivia had initiated a transformation that would resonate far beyond one night, one officer, and one small town. By midweek, Caldwell County felt the weight of scrutiny pressing down on every corner of the sheriff's department. Officers moved with heightened awareness. Federal investigators had begun requesting documentation and footage from past nighttime stops. Captain Brenda Sullivan and her team meticulously cross-checked records, identifying repeated misconduct and patterns of racial bias. Each piece of evidence, meticulously catalogued, the narrative of abuse unfolded with clarity. Olivia Palmer continued her work in Richmond, refining her notes and timelines. Every detail from the night of her detention, Watkins's aggressive approach, the gravel scraping her skin, the handcuffs' cold bite, and the 4-ounce credential wallet in the glove compartment, was documented. Her disciplined recall allowed investigators to reconstruct the events accurately and assertively. Watkins, now facing multiple investigations, began to grasp the gravity of his situation. His previous confidence eroded as internal affairs and federal agents meticulously reviewed each stop he had conducted. The culture he had relied upon, grounded in fear and hierarchical dominance, was now collapsing under systematic scrutiny. Officer Beckett cooperated fully, providing candid testimony about the night Olivia was detained and other instances of inaction. Her account highlighted the pressures junior officers face and the systemic failures that allowed misconduct to persist. The combination of Beckett's insight and Olivia's precise documentation created a compelling, irrefutable case against Watkins and his collaborators. Federal authorities expanded their civil rights investigation, analyzing disproportionate traffic stops and fabricated charges. The scope encompassed other officers who had routinely partnered with Watkins, revealing a network of abuse spanning years. Olivia and Nathan coordinated closely, ensuring that federal, state, and internal investigations were synchronized. The evidence left little room for ambiguity, solidifying the accountability process. The human cost of these abuses weighed heavily on Olivia. Beyond statistics were real lives disrupted, families torn apart, trust in law enforcement compromised, and community relationships damaged. Her personal sacrifice during the roadside encounter had preserved the integrity of the investigation, ensuring justice for those who lacked her protection. By late afternoon, formal notifications had been sent to Caldwell County leadership. Watkins faced escalating consequences, with internal investigations and federal scrutiny converging. Every documented stop, every corrupted file, and every act of misconduct was accounted for. The slow, deliberate process of accountability began, demonstrating that no individual could operate beyond the law indefinitely. As Olivia glanced at the photo of her father on her desk, she drew strength from his legacy. His dedication to justice and ethical conduct guided her. The process was far from complete, but the first steps towards systemic reform had been taken. One night, one car, one decision had ignited a series of events that would reshape Caldwell County law enforcement practices and reaffirm the importance of integrity and accountability in positions of authority. As the federal investigation deepened, Caldwell County's law enforcement culture began to shift under pressure. Officers were cautious, knowing that every action, every decision was being scrutinized. Captain Brenda Sullivan ensured that internal affairs meticulously followed every thread, documenting patterns of misconduct, racial bias, and abuse of authority. Each report reinforced the larger narrative of systemic failure, demanding accountability. Olivia Palmer, back in Richmond, continued her careful review of every detail. She reconstructed her roadside detention minute by minute, documenting the aggressive tactics of Derek Watkins and the silent compliance of Beckett. Her attention to detail became the foundation for both federal and internal inquiries, ensuring that no fact could be contested or ignored. The 4-ounce wallet in the glove compartment, now an emblem of authority and truth, had sparked the momentum for systemic accountability. Beckett's cooperation revealed the subtle mechanisms that allowed abuse to persist: fear, deference to seniority, and institutional culture that discouraged speaking up. Her testimony, combined with Olivia's precise documentation, highlighted not only the wrongdoing of a single officer, but the structural flaws that permitted misconduct to endure for years. The human consequences became undeniable, forcing the county and federal authorities to act decisively. Within the FBI, Nathan Cross coordinated logistical support and ensured the seamless integration of evidence. Dashcams, body cams, GPS tracking, and witness interviews were synchronized, producing a coherent and irrefutable case. The meticulous reconstruction left Watkins and his collaborators with little room to maneuver. Accountability was no longer optional. It was inevitable. Olivia reflected on the personal cost of her silence and compliance during the traffic stop. Each moment of restraint had preserved the integrity of the investigation and protected countless individuals from injustice. Her father's legacy, a symbol of integrity and courage, remained her guide. She carried the weight of moral responsibility with quiet resolve, knowing that systemic change required both vigilance and sacrifice. By the evening, formal inquiries were underway, and Watkins faced mounting pressure. Internal reports detailed each fabricated stop, every corrupted or missing body cam file, and his repeated violations of protocol. Federal authorities expanded their investigation to include other officers involved in nighttime stops, revealing a broader network of misconduct. The culture of impunity was being dismantled systematically, evidence by evidence. The community felt the ripple effects, though quietly. Accountability processes moved deliberately, but their presence was unmistakable. Officers adjusted their behaviors, aware that each stop, each interaction could be recorded and reviewed. Olivia's mission had ignited a transformation that extended beyond the immediate investigation, influencing the ethos of Caldwell County law enforcement. As she left the office that night, Olivia paused to look at her father's photo. His broad smile, uniform crisp, and the pride in his eyes reminded her why she endured. The journey was far from complete, but progress was evident. One night, one choice, and unwavering adherence to duty had begun a chain of events that would resonate far beyond a single encounter, reshaping a system long taken for granted. By the following week, the Caldwell County Sheriff's Department was under intense observation. Federal oversight ensured that every stop, every record, and every officer's actions were monitored. Captain Brenda Sullivan's team continued to analyze historical data, building a detailed map of patterns that revealed systemic abuse and racial bias. Each documented instance of misconduct solidified the foundation for reform. Olivia Palmer, reflecting on her own experience, organized the compilation of evidence into a comprehensive narrative. Her meticulous notes captured every nuance: Watkins' pretextual stops, his aggressive demeanor, the precise moments she remained silent, and the placement of the 4-ounce credential wallet that had been pivotal in preserving evidence. Her attention to detail ensured the case was unassailable, providing a clear, factual account for both federal and internal investigators. Beckett's ongoing cooperation was instrumental. She detailed not only her own inaction, but also the subtle pressures within law enforcement that allowed misconduct to persist. Her testimony exposed the hierarchy and cultural norms that discouraged intervention, offering insight into systemic flaws that went beyond individual wrongdoing. The combined evidence painted a picture of a networked problem rather than isolated incidents. Federal investigators expanded the civil rights inquiry, tracing patterns of misconduct to other officers who regularly partnered with Watkins. Olivia and Nathan coordinated the integration of all gathered evidence, ensuring that timelines, dashcam footage, and GPS data aligned. The investigation revealed a network of abuses that had been concealed by corrupted files and selective enforcement. Accountability was no longer a possibility, it was an inevitability. Olivia contemplated the human consequences of the systemic failures. Beyond the numbers and reports were real people, families affected by wrongful stops, charges, and convictions. Her restraint and adherence to protocol during her roadside encounter preserved the integrity of the investigation, allowing for justice to reach those who had been harmed. The moral complexity of her choices underscored the personal cost inherent in upholding the law. By late afternoon, formal notifications and inquiries were being sent to Caldwell County leadership. Watkins faced internal reviews and federal investigations, his actions under the microscope. The pattern of misconduct, once hidden, was now exposed, leaving him with diminished authority and credibility. The systemic reforms were beginning to take shape, guided by meticulous documentation and the unwavering dedication of those committed to accountability. As Olivia left the office, she glanced at her father's photograph. His pride, integrity, and dedication to justice inspired her continuing commitment. The journey toward systemic change was ongoing, deliberate, and exacting, yet each step forward, each revelation of truth, reinforced the principle that justice requires vigilance, courage, and persistence. One night, one incident, and one unwavering commitment to duty had initiated a transformation that would extend far beyond a single encounter and into the fabric of Caldwell County law enforcement. The following days in Richmond were a flurry of activity. Olivia Palmer meticulously reviewed every timeline, body cam, and record from Caldwell County. Nathan Cross coordinated with analysts, ensuring that all evidence aligned with federal standards. Every stop, every dashcam recording, and every witness account was cross-referenced. The pattern of misconduct, once hidden by corrupted files and selective reporting, now emerged clearly and unequivocally. At Caldwell County, Watkins' authority was crumbling. Internal affairs, guided by Sullivan, had begun formal inquiries. The evidence was overwhelming. Fabricated probable causes, unlawful detentions, and destroyed body cam footage. His badge, once a symbol of unquestioned power, was now a focal point for accountability. Officers across the department adjusted their behavior, aware that every action could be scrutinized federally and internally. Beckett continued to provide detailed testimony, describing the pressures and fear that had prevented her from intervening during Olivia's detention. Her candidness highlighted systemic problems, illustrating how hierarchy and culture often suppress ethical action. Her cooperation, combined with Olivia's precise documentation, solidified the investigation, ensuring that both individual and institutional accountability were addressed. Olivia reflected on the human impact of Watkins's actions. Beyond the statistics were real lives disrupted, families torn apart, trust in law enforcement undermined, and community relations fractured. The restraint she had shown during her roadside detention preserved the investigation's integrity, allowing justice to reach those who had been wronged. Her decisions were guided by both professional duty and personal ethics, embodying the principle that protecting the vulnerable sometimes requires personal sacrifice. By late afternoon, formal notifications had been sent. Watkins faced escalating consequences, and federal investigators continued to expand their review to include other officers implicated in similar misconduct. The culture of impunity was being dismantled systematically. Every corrupted file, every fabricated claim, and every procedural violation was meticulously documented, leaving no room for obfuscation or delay. As Olivia concluded her day, she paused to look at her father's photograph. His legacy of integrity and service provided a guiding light, reinforcing the importance of her work. Though the process was slow and deliberate, progress was undeniable. One night, one encounter, and steadfast commitment had catalyzed a chain reaction that would reverberate through Caldwell County law enforcement, emphasizing that accountability and justice demand both vigilance and courage. By the next week, Caldwell County was experiencing the ripple effects of scrutiny from both federal and internal authorities. Watkins' behavior, once unchecked, was being dissected in minute detail. Internal Affairs, led by Captain Sullivan, continued their relentless review of each stop, each record, and every body cam or dash cam recording. The evidence left no ambiguity. Systemic abuse, racial bias, and fabricated pretexts were widespread, implicating more than just a single officer. Olivia Palmer returned to Richmond, continuing her work with Nathan Cross. Together, they reconstructed the events, mapping timelines, confirming GPS data, and cross-referencing witness statements. Every detail she had memorized during her roadside detention became crucial evidence. The weight of the cuffed hands, the gravel scraping her skin, the precise handling of her credential wallet. These elements formed the backbone of a case that left no room for doubt. Officer Beckett's ongoing testimony proved invaluable. Her narrative revealed the pressures and constraints junior officers face, illustrating how institutional culture and fear allowed misconduct to persist. Her insights, combined with Olivia's meticulous record-keeping, demonstrated that accountability required addressing both individual actions and the systemic environment that enabled them. Federal investigators expanded the civil rights inquiry to include other officers regularly working alongside Watkins. Dashcams, body cams, and internal logs were reviewed in depth, revealing patterns of misconduct across multiple cases. The integration of these resources ensured a coordinated and comprehensive response, dismantling the culture of impunity that had persisted for years. Olivia reflected on the human toll of these abuses. Each stop, each fabricated charge, and each wrongful detention carried consequences for real people and families. Her composure and adherence to protocol during her own detention had protected the integrity of the investigation, allowing justice to be pursued effectively. The moral weight of her choices underscored the complexity of her work and the personal sacrifices required to uphold it. By mid-afternoon, Watkins faced formal inquiries and escalating pressure. Internal reports and federal oversight left no space for evasion. Every corrupted file, every fabricated stop, and every act of procedural misconduct was documented, creating a comprehensive record that would be difficult to contest. The process, deliberate and methodical, emphasized that no officer could operate beyond accountability indefinitely. Olivia glanced at her father's photo, drawing strength from his legacy. His dedication and integrity continued to guide her decisions. Though the path toward reform was long and painstaking, each step forward reinforced the principle that accountability is not a singular act, but a persistent, ongoing process. One night, one roadside encounter, and one unwavering commitment to duty had set into motion a systemic transformation in Caldwell County law enforcement practices. As the investigation progressed, Caldwell County faced growing accountability pressures. Officers were aware that federal and internal oversight scrutinized every decision. Captain Brenda Sullivan's Internal Affairs team continued methodical reviews of Watkins's prior stops, confirming systemic abuse, racial bias, and procedural violations. Patterns emerged that were impossible to ignore, revealing a culture that had tolerated misconduct for years. Olivia Palmer maintained her meticulous documentation from Richmond. Every detail she had memorized, the roadside detention, the pressure of the handcuffs, the gravel beneath her, formed a precise record. Her efforts, combined with Nathan Cross's coordination, ensured all evidence was synchronized and preserved. The 4-ounce credential wallet, untouched in the glove compartment, had become a pivotal artifact, anchoring the integrity of the investigation. Beckett's cooperation highlighted the systemic factors that perpetuated misconduct. Her inaction during Olivia's detention, coupled with repeated observations of Watkins' behavior, offered insights into the institutional culture that pressured officers to comply with authority. By providing detailed accounts, Beckett helped investigators understand the broader context beyond individual choices, revealing structural failures in law enforcement accountability. Federal authorities expanded the civil rights investigation, tracing patterns of misconduct to other officers regularly partnering with Watkins. Dashcam and bodycam footage, GPS data, and witness statements were analyzed in depth. The coordinated effort dismantled the network of abuse, establishing accountability across multiple layers of law enforcement in Caldwell County. Olivia considered the human consequences. Every stop, fabricated charge, and detention had affected real people and families. Her composure and adherence to protocol during her own detention preserved the investigation's integrity, allowing justice to reach those impacted. Her careful restraint underscored the personal sacrifices inherent in upholding ethical standards in the face of systemic corruption. By evening, Watkins faced formal internal inquiries and federal scrutiny. Each prior misconduct, corrupted file, and fabricated justification was meticulously documented. The process was deliberate, ensuring that accountability would be comprehensive and irrefutable. Officers began to understand that privilege and rank offered no immunity from consequences. Olivia paused at her desk, looking at her father's photograph. His legacy of integrity and public service provided guidance. Though systemic change was slow, the groundwork had been laid. One roadside encounter, one act of professional courage, had triggered a chain reaction, initiating reform that would affect Caldwell County law enforcement and underscore the importance of steadfast commitment to justice and accountability. By the second week following Olivia's roadside detention, Caldwell County law enforcement was operating under an intense microscope. Each officer was aware that their actions were monitored both internally and federally. Captain Brenda Sullivan and her internal affairs team meticulously analyzed historical stops, uncovering a pattern of misconduct and racial bias that spanned multiple years. Each new piece of evidence reinforced the systemic nature of the abuses. Olivia Palmer continued her precise work in Richmond, reviewing and cataloging every detail from the night she had been detained. Every movement, every command, every moment of compliance was documented with exacting accuracy. The black leather credential wallet, now photographed and preserved, symbolized the authority and truth that had preserved the investigation. It became a linchpin for the unfolding accountability process. Officer Beckett's cooperation added clarity to the structural pressures that had prevented intervention. Her testimony highlighted the cultural and hierarchical constraints that allowed misconduct to persist, offering insights into the mechanisms of systemic failure. By combining her account with Olivia's meticulous record-keeping, investigators built a compelling narrative that could not be dismissed. Federal authorities expanded their civil rights investigation to include other officers involved in recurring nighttime stops. Dashcam footage, bodycam recordings, and GPS data were cross-referenced, revealing a network of misconduct that extended beyond Derek Watkins. The coordinated approach ensured that accountability was comprehensive, targeting both individual and institutional failures. Olivia contemplated the human impact of the abuses, disrupted lives, fractured families, and the erosion of trust in law enforcement. Her adherence to protocol during her detention had protected the integrity of the investigation, enabling justice to reach those harmed by systemic corruption. The moral and professional weight of her choices was evident in the precision and thoroughness of the ongoing inquiries. By evening, Watkins faced formal internal and federal inquiries. Each fabricated stop, corrupted file, and instance of abuse was meticulously documented, leaving no room for evasion. The process was deliberate, thorough, and unavoidable, signaling a turning point for Caldwell County law enforcement. The culture of impunity was being systematically dismantled. Olivia paused at her desk, reflecting on her father's photograph. His legacy of dedication, integrity, and courage served as her guide. While the path to systemic reform was long and challenging, progress was undeniable. One night, one encounter, and a steadfast commitment to duty had set in motion a chain of events that would transform Caldwell County law enforcement, reinforcing the principles of accountability, integrity, and justice. Weeks later, Caldwell County began implementing tangible reforms. Internal Affairs continued its thorough review, uncovering repeated misconduct and exposing systemic issues. Watkins faced formal disciplinary measures, and other officers involved in recurring nighttime stops were also under scrutiny. The network of abuse, once concealed by corrupted files and hierarchical silence, was now dismantled systematically. Olivia Palmer remained at the center of the investigation, coordinating federal oversight, internal audits, and the careful cataloging of evidence. Her meticulous records and recollections from the night she was detained provided irrefutable documentation. The 4-ounce credential wallet in her glove compartment had become emblematic of authority and integrity, anchoring the accountability process and symbolizing the perseverance of justice. Officer Beckett's testimony continued to illuminate the pressures and systemic barriers within law enforcement that had allowed misconduct to persist. Her candid recounting of events revealed not just individual failings, but the structural flaws in the department that enabled repeated abuses. Her cooperation was instrumental in ensuring that accountability extended beyond Derek Watkins alone. Federal civil rights investigations expanded, tracing misconduct patterns to other officers who had routinely partnered with Watkins. Dashcam footage, bodycam recordings, GPS tracking, and witness statements were analyzed and integrated into a comprehensive case. The evidence demonstrated systemic abuse, ensuring that both individual officers and the department itself were held accountable. Olivia reflected on the human impact of these investigations: disrupted lives, broken trust, and the lasting consequences of misconduct. Her adherence to protocol during her detention preserved the integrity of the investigation, allowing justice to be pursued for those affected. The process underscored the personal sacrifices inherent in enforcing accountability and upholding ethical standards. By midweek, Watkins faced escalating consequences. Internal and federal inquiries meticulously documented each fabricated stop, corrupted file, and procedural violation. The department, under scrutiny and oversight, began adopting reforms, including real-time body camera uploads, independent civilian reviews, annual bias audits, and mandatory de-escalation training. The culture of impunity was being replaced by systems designed to prevent abuse. Olivia glanced at her father's photograph, drawing strength from his legacy. His dedication, integrity, and courage guided her work, reminding her of the importance of perseverance. Though systemic reform was ongoing, each measured step reinforced the principle that justice is a deliberate, exacting process. One night, one encounter, and one unwavering commitment to duty had ignited a transformation that would reverberate through Caldwell County law enforcement and beyond. The culmination of the Caldwell County investigations brought a quiet but profound shift. Derek Watkins and the officers implicated in repeated misconduct faced formal terminations and federal charges. Internal Affairs, guided by Captain Sullivan, ensured that every detail was accounted for. Fabricated probable causes, corrupted bodycam footage, and repeated racial bias in nighttime traffic stops. The network of abuse was dismantled, and the wheels of accountability turned steadily. Olivia Palmer, having endured the roadside detention that had initiated the investigation, now observed the tangible outcomes of her vigilance and restraint. Federal civil rights inquiries confirmed her meticulous recollection of events, validating the sacrifices she had made to protect the mission. Beckett's cooperation further illuminated the structural pressures that had allowed misconduct to persist, revealing the human complexities behind systemic failures. Within Caldwell County, procedural reforms were implemented. Real-time body camera uploads to secure cloud servers prevented selective deletions. Independent civilian review boards were established, Annual racial bias audits became mandatory, and de-escalation training for officers was required with enforceable consequences. These steps, while unable to undo past injustices, created structures to protect future citizens and promote accountability. Olivia, reflecting on the process, recognized both the personal and professional weight of her choices. She had remained silent when speaking out could have compromised her mission, preserving evidence that led to widespread accountability. Her father's legacy guided her, the photo on her desk a reminder of the courage, discipline, and integrity she carried forward. One night, one roadside encounter, and her unwavering adherence to duty had sparked a transformation far greater than herself. Families affected by Watkins' fabrications began to see justice realized. Convictions were overturned, charges dismissed, and records corrected. Lives disrupted for years were slowly being restored. For one father, reunited with a daughter he had been separated from for 3 years due to a wrongful conviction, the morning sunlight illuminated a simple yet profound moment of restoration. No words were needed, only presence and relief. In Richmond, Olivia received an official commendation for exceptional courage and dedication to duty. Public acknowledgement of her work could not capture the physical pain or the psychological strain endured that night, but the recognition affirmed the importance of ethical steadfastness. The case had demonstrated that systemic change often begins with one person's commitment to doing the right thing under extraordinary pressure. As she called her mother, Denise, their familiar comfort filled the conversation. The weight of fear, responsibility, and determination now intertwined with a sense of achievement. Caldwell County was not wholly transformed, but its law enforcement culture had been forced to confront its failures, implement reforms, and prioritize accountability. Justice had moved forward, one decision at a time. Olivia looked at her father's photograph one last time that evening, drawing strength and resolve. The journey ahead remained long, but progress was real, deliberate, and visible. And with quiet determination, she reflected, one encounter, one choice, one commitment could ripple outward to create meaningful change. Subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, and share this video.